Joining me live in the studio, Labor MP, member for Bennelong, Jerome Laxale, and Chief Opposition Whip, member for Casey, Aaron Violi. Gentlemen, it's great to see you both. A big week, and I had Sarah Henderson here just a little while ago saying something's got to change. And she wasn't explicitly saying there's got to be a leadership change, but she kept saying something has got to change. It's an existential crisis for the Liberal Party. What do you say to that?
Well, I mean, we're hearing a lot, and I know Jane Hume was on this morning. Clearly, a couple of things that are really clear. We had our worst result at the May election. We should never forget that, and we're not making the ground and making the improvements we need to. And you always have to be careful. It is true, polls are a test, a testing time, but we've got 2 to 18 months till the next election. But clearly, we're hearing the feedback through the polling, but also through our communities, and I'm hearing it and talking to my community. We need to be better. They want us to put forward positive policies and hold a bad government to account. I mean, the interesting thing about this polling is, yes, we're at a low ebb, obviously, but the government's not reaping the benefits of that. They're at about the same primaries. So there is a lot of work for us to do to win back the trust of our core supporters, and then we also need to start taking gains off Labor once we've done that. A lot of work to do, but that's what we're here to do.
What do you say to critics who would argue that Susan Lee never got a chance, that she hasn't been given a chance? Well, undermined from the get-go. That's the argument.
There's multiple arguments. Everyone's got opinions on different things. The reality is we are where we are. The results in News Poll are what they are. We cannot be determined by polls because, as I've said before, this time last year we were 40 ahead and everything was flying. So they're a reference point as part of a full conversation, and we need to continue to make sure we're putting our best foot forward, holding a bad government to account. We saw last week, Jerome and I are both on the Economics Committee, the RBA Governor completely contradicting the Treasurer, that government spending is playing a role in these high interest rates. We need to be prosecuting that case, holding the government to account. The reason we need to hold them to account is we need them to start changing because it's the Australian people that are feeling the pain of their failures. And that's my focus, and that's what we all need to be focused on.
Jerome, is Aaron right to the extent that the primary vote for Labor is not at stratospheric levels? There's not a great deal of love out there, is there?
Well, polls bounce around, right? I've seen polls that show inner metropolitan seats having an increased Labor votes. I've seen polls where our primary stayed the same. They'll bounce up and down. But there's, out of this whole mess, I would say 2 things to the Liberal Party. Is one, stop legitimising one nation and far-right politics, right? Let's not forget, at the 2025 election, the Liberal Party and One Nation did a preference deal where they exchanged preferences. The only reason we have a One Nation centre in WA and New South Wales is on the back of Liberal Party preferences, and that's not something John Howard did, right? So John Howard put One Nation towards the bottom where they belong. The second thing is stop racing to the right to try and copycat them, because One Nation's policies of division and grievance serve Australia no purpose in the long run. In a community like mine, where multicultural communities have been under attack from the likes of One Nation for decades, the Liberal Party don't need to try and copy that. They need to stand up against it and find their backbone again and come back to the centre, which is where most Australians reside.
Does it worry you that in your scathing critique of One Nation, but One Nation's now, according to the News Poll, 27, Labor not much above that? It's in the low 30s.
I'm worried about...
Is it closing in on Labor's vote?
Well, I'm worried about the challenges that communities like mine face, dealing with housing affordability, dealing with cost of living. And you can see our response in the Parliament, on the House Economics Committee. You've heard stuff from the Treasurer on the weekend about what work we're doing every day to try and address that. I'm really hopeful that the May budget will provide some really important reform, long-term reform, and our focus every day is on Australian people. What the polls do, they'll bounce around. We're seeing a fracturing on the right. But my message to the Liberals is get it together, guys, and just start focusing on, what needs to be done in this building instead of fighting one another.
That's good advice, though, isn't it?
I mean, obviously you're stronger together, and we've had the conversations with the Nationals, and we're back together as a coalition. And as I've always said, the coalition works well when it's a mutually beneficial partnership, and that looks like where we've got it, which is where we need to be. And now we need to keep moving forward. Put our.
How do you reflect on One Nation as a threat?
Well, I mean, you always need to respect every political party. I never liked the term major or minor party. There are political parties, and you have to earn the right to get the support of the Australian people every day and every election. Clearly, there are issues that people are attracted to if you go by the polls. What we need to do is focus on ourselves, get our house in order, have a sensible conversation, put forward policies. Migration is obviously a topical conversation. John O'Doniham has done a lot of work on that. He was about to announce the policy in December last year, and we rightly made the decision to hold off given what happened in Bondi. But making sure that the migration system is working for all Australians is an important conversation. In my community of Casey, we rely on overseas workers for farm hands, et cetera, et cetera. So there is a role to play. Getting the balance right, making sure that we're getting the right skilled workers into the right communities to add to our Australian story is so important. My family's a migrant story. We need to get that balance right. And when you get it right, as we've seen in history, Australians embrace migration as one of the 3 key pillars of the Australian story.
Alex Hawke was on the program, and he said, explained that he still thinks that, the One Nation won't ever have a Prime Minister, but the Liberal Party can. And that's where you need to get back to, is to make yourself the credible alternative to the Labor government. It seems like that is a long way off right now.
I mean, Pauline Hanson herself last week said she wasn't going to become the government. She admitted on, I think it was Chris Kenny last week, that she didn't see a pathway to government for her party. That was her words, not mine. But you are correct that we need to be a credible opposition first, and then when you're a credible opposition, you then can become a credible party of government. And that's what our focus needs to be. That is what the Liberal Party and the coalition has always been. The ALP went through different journeys when they split with the DLP, and other times they were 13 years in opposition under John Howard. Political parties and political movements go through highs and lows. We are clearly at a low, and it's going to take all of us working together to focus on the issues that matter to the Australian people, putting forward credible policies to be a party of government. But you don't automatically be a party of government. You have to earn that every day. And clearly people are telling us they don't see that with us today.
And for the Prime Minister, it seems his focus is relentlessly on... He's trying to just keep his focus on the middle ground. Is that his worldview? Is that the effective approach?
Well, the history of Australian politics shows that politics here are one in the centre. That's where the majority of Australians want their major political parties to be. And, unfortunately for Aaron and some of his newer colleagues, Susan Ley and Angus Taylor, are no John Howard. You just made the reference there to John Howard being Prime Minister for 13 years. We've seen in most recent policy discussions, opposing some really sensible gun reforms, trying to track One Nation on moving towards the right. John Howard wouldn't have done that. And I think the Liberal Party need to look into history to see what they once were, to figure out where they're going to go in the next couple of years.
And finally, do you welcome the presence, the visit by the Israeli president?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really disappointing to see these protests, particularly in the context that the Israeli president was invited by the government to show solidarity and support with the Jewish community after the horrific terrorist attack in Bondi on December 14th. That is the reason he was invited. These protests are not needed, are not wanted, and do not help social cohesion and do not help a grieving community, the Jewish community, at this time. So I absolutely welcome his visit.
Jerome?
Very appropriate visit. I've seen some snippets of footage out there with Premier Minns and the President of Israel. Aaron acknowledged the context of the visit. I think, a Jewish president coming to visit Jewish Australian families who are still grieving and mourning is entirely appropriate.
Yeah, it sure is. Thank you, gents. Talk to you soon.